The feast was grand, until the king collapsed. Welcome to Marple Mysteries. I am your host, Harrington. Share your city. I appreciate every message. Wolfe tastes treachery beneath the holiday dishes. Christmas in our brownstone starts early, not with holly, but with Fritz's shopping lists and Wolfe's pronouncements. By mid-December, the place smells like a treaty between butter and brandy, and Wolfe guards the kitchen the way a monk guards a relic. My job is to keep the outside world from trampling that sanctuary. So when the doorbell went at 3:15 on December 23rd, I knew trouble had a nose for timing. Wolfe was in the big red chair, a book balanced on his stomach, looking content the way a boa constrictor looks content after lunch. I reported the buzz. "If it is Inspector Kramer, tell him to come never," Wolfe said. "It's a woman. She says she has an appointment." He sighed. "Bring her up, and do not permit her to approach the kitchen. Fritz is engaged in delicate operations." I opened at the front door to a tall woman in a sable coat that probably had its own accountant. She was around 40, steady-eyed, and she walked in like the house was already hers. "Archie Goodwin?" she asked. "That's what they call me. Come on up." In the office, she took the yellow chair and faced Wolfe directly. "Mrs. Kingsley, Clara Kingsley, I telephoned." "The Kingsley Hotels," Wolfe said. "What is your business with me?" "My husband is giving a Christmas dinner tomorrow night at the Kingsley Imperial. He calls it the King's Christmas Feast. 12 guests, men who can vote, invest, or bless. He means to announce a new foundation and a partnership. He means to be applauded. And you would deny him that pleasure. I would deny him what he's done to secure it. On Monday, he dismissed our head chef, Henri Duval. Not for incompetence, for refusing to sign a false confession of an error that never happened. Yesterday, Duval vanished. He didn't go home. He didn't collect pay. He simply disappeared. You wish me to locate Monsieur Duval? No, I wish you to stop the feast. I couldn't help it. Stop a dinner. Lady, I'm not sure even Wolfe can cancel poultry. She ignored me. If Duval turns up before tomorrow night, alive or dead, Edward's plans collapse. Those men will not sit at his table with a scandal in the soup. If he doesn't, Edward proceeds, and I'm afraid of what he'll do next. He thinks he can buy silence like truffles. You fear for your husband, Wolfe said. I fear for the people around him, including me. Edward has made enemies lately, on purpose. Duval knew something. Edward believed he had silenced him, and I think someone else may be silencing Edward in return. Evidence? Only timing, and a note. She produced a folded scrap. It was slipped under my door this morning. In French, "The feast is blood." I watched her hands, while Wolfe watched her face. They were quiet, but not from weakness. They were quiet the way a fuse is quiet before it decides to hiss. She wasn't a woman who came to detectives for melodrama. She came because she had run out of safe rooms in her own house. Outside, a taxi honked on 35th and went away. Inside, Wolfe was already rearranging the board he never admits he's playing on. And if the feast really was blood, it meant somebody had sharpened the carving knife long before Fritz ever laid it out tonight. The air got thin. Wolfe read the paper and set it down as if it might stain his desk. He studied her. "Mrs. Kingsley," he said, "to stop a feast is not an enterprise I undertake lightly." "Then don't stop it for me," she said. "Stop it because it's being paid for in advance." Wolfe's eyes narrowed a fraction. "Archie, inform Fritz that dinner will be at 8 instead of 7. We may be occupied." That was as close to yes as he ever gives before he explains why. Mrs. Kingsley left looking like she'd handed us a live grenade and was counting on Wolfe to decide where to set it down. I walked her to the stoop, noted the cab number, and came back upstairs. Wolfe was still studying the French scrap as if it might bite. "You moved dinner," I said. "It is a concession to reality. If she's merely petulant, she will receive an invoice. If not, we proceed." He tapped the chair arm. Someone wanted to frighten her. Whether to silence her or to spur her is unclear. It spurred her. She came. Then the author misjudged or intended that. Call Saul Panzer, then Mr. Kramer. Saul answered like he had a hand already on his hat. The name Kingsley got a whistle. I've heard about that Christmas blowout. I'll nose around and be over later. Kramer growled. No body, no complaint, no crime. Sounds like hotel politics. Chef disappears after refusing a false confession. There's a warning note, and the host is a headline magnet. Worth a blink. He sighed. All right. I'll send Pearlie to the Imperial tonight. Wolfe's eyes settled somewhere past me. We require the facts of Duval's dismissal and the identities of the 12 guests. Mrs. Kingsley brought no list. Curious. You will go to the hotel. Quietly. I put on my good grey suit and let December wind, argue with my head. The Kingsley Imperial sat on its corner like it owned the block. The lobby was marble and pine scent with a Christmas tree big enough to charge admission. I asked for the food and beverage manager. The clerk sized me up and routed me to the service side. Rollo Vance met me in an office that smelled of coffee and panic. We don't usually use outside help, he said. I'm not here to help. I'm here to ask. His jaw tightened. Duval. Start with Monday. Vance flicked his eyes to the door. Mr. Kingsley wanted changes. Duval refused to use a new supplier. He said the ingredients were substandard. Kingsley said Duval was sabotaging the feast. There was shouting. Duval was fired. New supplier for what? For the centerpiece. A roast boar, old world style. Kingsley hired a butcher from upstate. Duval inspected the carcass and called it diseased. He said it could kill people. Kingsley demanded Duval sign a statement admitting he'd mishandled prior shipments. Duval refused. Then he vanished. Yesterday morning, he never came in. His sous chef said Duval planned to meet someone at the loading bay at 6 to pick up his knives. The sous waited. Duval didn't show. Who was meeting him? No one we can confirm. The loading bay camera was down for maintenance. Convenient. Bad timing. We have a replacement chef, but the staff's rattled. Duval was a star. Stars leave trails. Did he keep notes? Vance hesitated. A small black notebook. Deliveries, substitutions, complaints. After he was fired, he took it. Yesterday, Mr. Kingsley wanted it returned. Wanted it how? Firmly. I nodded. Who else fought with Kingsley? The event planner, Miss Lila Dorff. She handles the guest list. Kingsley accused her of leaking details, and the butcher, Gideon Rusk, threatened to walk when Duval insulted his product. I took a look at the banquet room being staged for tomorrow. Long table, silver, evergreens, a carved wooden crown at the center like a joke with teeth. In the corridor, 2 waiters rehearsed in low voices. One said Duval had warned them not to touch the boar. The other said Kingsley had ordered another one tonight, privately. Notebook. Camera down. A 6 a.m. meeting, a diseased boar, and a host who needed a spotless feast more than air. Whatever happened to Duval was tied to that crown and to tomorrow's knives. I rode the elevator up, thinking of Wolfe in his chair, already turning these pieces over without lifting a finger. I rode back to the brownstone with the hotel's pine and marble gloss still in my nose and Vance's coffee panic in my ears. Fritz met me in the hall, apron on and eyebrows up. Mr. Wolfe says you will be late for dinner, he said. He says a lot of things. Smells good, though. Do not flatter me. I'm anxious. There will be a boar. There already is. Maybe 2. That's the trouble. Wolfe took me in before I'd sat down, like my coat was a report. I gave him Vance's story. Duval fired after calling the boar diseased, the black notebook, the 6 a.m. Bay meeting, the camera that went blind. He didn't interrupt. When I finished, he folded his hands. One does not dismiss a chef of Duval's stature for caprice, he said. You saw the guest list? No list, Dorf guards it. Vance says she and Kingsley fought over leaks. Then we must see her. But first, the butcher. You want me to go back out? I do not wish to, certainly. His eyes slid to the clock. Saul will arrive at 9. We should have notes before then. After an early plate from Fritz, I went out again. Gideon Rusk's shop in the meatpacking district was a red-lit cave that smelled of iron and hickory. Rusk himself was thick, neat-bearded, calm the way men are when they trust their knives. I'm closed, he said. Not to a question. Archie Goodwin for Nero Wolfe. That got me a grudging chair behind the counter. I sold Kingsley a boar, premium, inspected, clean as a hymn. Duval called it diseased. Duval was grandstanding, wanted leverage, chefs love a stage. Yet he vanished. Rusk shrugged, but his eyes stayed pinned. Not my doing. I delivered Sunday night to the Hotel Bay. Duval met me, angry, sure, not scared. Did you meet him again yesterday morning? No, 6 a.m.? I was dressing turkeys. Ask Kingsley's security. Security camera was down. Rusk's mouth twitched. Funny. Kingsley ordered a second boar this afternoon. Sent an aide in a camel coat. Cash. Wants it delivered tonight. Same bay. If the first was diseased, he wouldn't double down unless he knew it wasn't, or unless he had to replace something. Replace what? He wiped the counter too hard. I sell meat, not riddles. I left him with his annoyance. On the sidewalk, a skinny kid in a messenger cap watched me from the corner, then turned away too quick. I let him go, but the street had that faint pressure you feel before snow. Back home, Sol Panzer was already there, leaning on Wolfe's desk like he belonged. He nodded at me. Kingsley's got a long shadow. I talked to a maid on their floor. Mrs. Kingsley's note wasn't the only one. The husband got an anonymous call this morning saying Duval was in safe refrigeration. He laughed, then phoned somebody and said to finish it. Wolfe's lids lifted a fraction. Did the maid hear the recipient? No, but she heard him curse in French, then say a name. Rusk. I said, our butcher. Possibly, Wolfe murmured, or another Rusk. Still interesting given the second boar. Saul added, I got the 12 dinner guests. Dorf had to file a security list with the fire marshal. Senator Bragan, Bishop Tuttle, banker Milner, tech mogul Choi, union boss Garvey, 3 hotel investors, and 2 foundation sharks. It's a power zoo. Which meant the feast was less a party than a summit, and any taint on the menu would echo into boardrooms and pulpits for months after Christmas morning. Wolfe sat motionless, the way he does when pieces click. Finally, he said, Archie, telephone Miss Dorf. Invite her here at 10 tomorrow. Inform her that if she declines, I will appear at the feast myself. I stared. You? I'm not bluffing, he said. I merely prefer the alternative. I called Lila Dorf the next morning while Wolfe was in the orchid room and Fritz was wrestling a goose that had opinions. Dorf answered on the second ring, voice tight, but steady. Miss Dorf, Archie Goodwin, Nero Wolfe requests your presence at his office at 10. A pause. Is this about Chef Duval? It's about a Christmas feast that may not happen unless Mr. Wolfe is satisfied. I don't have time for theatrics. Mr. Wolfe doesn't do theatrics. He does consequences. He says if you can't come, he'll attend the feast himself. That brought a short laugh. Wolfe in public? Fine. 10. She arrived at 9:58, sleek in a dark coat, carrying a leather portfolio like a shield. Wolfe was installed in the red chair, eyes on her as if she were evidence. Miss Dorf, he said, you arrange Mr. Kingsley's dinner. I arrange until I'm overruled. You and Mr. Kingsley quarreled Monday. We disagreed. He wanted to add a surprise guest at the last minute and blamed me for leaks. I told him his own vanity was leaking. Surprise guest. A benefactor from Zurich. He He insisted on anonymity until the toast. I refused to seat a ghost at a table of lions. Kingsley overruled me. Name. I don't have it. He gave only an initial on a card. R. I was told he arrives tonight. Wolfe's eyes didn't move, but the room did. R again. Did Duval know of this? Wolfe asked. He knew pressure. Edward kept leaning on me to keep a chair open. Duval hated it. He said the table should be full of people, not schemes. Did you see Duval Tuesday? Yes. He came to clear out his locker. He asked if I knew Gideon Rusk. I said the butcher, yes. Duval said, "Tell your emperor his boar is poisoned." Then he left. After that, I called him yesterday morning. No answer. Her mouth tightened. If he vanished, someone wanted his tongue out of the way. Wolfe said, "You filed a security list for the guests. Give it to Archie." She slid a copy over. Saul's names matched, plus a blank slot labeled Guest R. Wolfe watched her. "You're frightened." "I'm cautious. Kingsley's enemies don't miss a target this size. I'm in the line of fire by proximity." "Do you believe Mr. Kingsley harmed Duval?" "I believe he would threaten. I don't know he'd kill. He likes to win cleanly in public, not in basements, but he hires men who don't mind basements." Wolfe nodded once. "Return to the Imperial. Do nothing. Say nothing. If anyone speaks to you about Duval or the boar, you will listen and report to me. I don't take orders from you. You will if you wish to avoid catastrophe. Archie will escort you out." In the hall, she halted. "What do you think happened?" "I think a feast has many cooks," I said, "and one is missing." She went down the stairs fast, not looking back. Upstairs, Wolfe was on the phone with Kramer, clipped and polite. When he hung up, he said, "Pearlie reports Kingsley has increased security at the loading bay for tonight's delivery. That is not the action of an innocent man, nor necessarily a guilty one. It is the action of a man who expects trouble. Maybe he expects Duval to walk in, waving a notebook. Perhaps. You will go to the hotel this evening. Take Saul. Observe the bay. We must know who delivers the second boar and who receives it." That meant cold air, hot questions, and probably another late sandwich. I said yes because that's my job. But my gut said the man coming with the boar wasn't bringing dinner. He was bringing a message. I reached for my coat, and Fritz's voice drifted from the kitchen, cheerful and ominous. "Archie, please do not be late. The goose is becoming sympathetic." Saul and I reached the Kingsley Imperial a little after 6, when the city was turning blue and shop windows were turning gold. The service alley behind the hotel was a canyon of steam vents and delivery doors. A guard in a wool cap eyed us, and Saul showed a badge that wasn't NYPD but carried enough weight to stop questions. We waited near the loading bay, half in shadow, half in smell. Diesel, cabbage, and something sweet drifting from the kitchens upstairs. Inside, a forklift sat idle. A refrigerator truck was already backed in, unmarked except for a farm name stenciled small, North Hollow Meats. At 6:30, a black sedan slid into the alley. Edward Kingsley stepped out, shorter than his legend, broad-shouldered, expensive, and restless. 2 men followed him in long, dark coats, scanning corners with professional boredom. Kingsley spoke to the guard, then to the truck crew. I eased closer, close enough to catch words over the hiss of a vent. "Where is Rusk?" Kingsley demanded. A stocky driver shook his head. "Mr. Rusk sent me. Said to tell you this one's clean, better than the last." It had better be. "Open it." The doors rolled back, a breath of cold air carrying the metallic tang of raw pork. The boar hung from a hook, pale, enormous, trussed for roasting. Kingsley leaned in, touching it with a gloved finger as if he could read truth through fat. One of his men said, "Move it inside, sir." "Not yet." Kingsley looked around. "No one else here?" Kitchen crew's up top, the guard said. Only us. Kingsley nodded, then pulled a small envelope from his coat and handed it to the driver. For Rusk. Tell him I expect his discretion to remain absolute. The driver pocketed it. Saul murmured, "He's paying for silence, not meat." Before I could answer, a thin kid stepped out from behind linen carts, cap low. One of Kingsley's men grabbed him hard. "What are you doing here?" he barked. The kid jerked free. "Delivering. To Chef Duval, to the kitchen." Kingsley's head snapped. "Duval, I got a note. Said wait here and give this to him." He held out folded paper. Kingsley took it, read again, then crushed it in his fist. "Who gave you this?" he asked. "A guy in the lobby. French. Said urgent. Paid me 20. Kingsley stepped closer, suddenly calm. "You never saw Duval?" "No, sir." "You will forget this alley. Forget the name Duval." He nodded to his man. "Give him 50. Send him away." Bills appeared. The kid glanced back once, scared and curious, then vanished around the corner. Kingsley turned to the guard. "No civilians in this bay tonight. Understood?" "Yes, Mr. Kingsley." He faced the boar again, then said softly to his men, "He's playing with me." "Fine. Let him." They hauled the carcass inside. Kingsley left without looking up, the sedan swallowing him. When the doors shut, Saul exhaled. That note was meant to draw Duval here, or to make Kingsley think Duval might be here. "Either way, somebody wants a collision," I said, "and Kingsley's paying Rusk to keep something quiet." We walked through the lobby's fake piece, and I phoned Wolfe, giving him the kid, the crumpled note, Kingsley's envelope. Wolfe was silent a beat. The messenger is a lure. The payoff is a bribe, and Gestar is not arriving from Zurich. He's arriving from necessity. Come home. We will reconsider our circle of suspects. Out in the cold, I could still taste the alley, the boar in its white chill, Kingsley's tense smile, the kid's frightened eyes. Somewhere in that hotel, a black notebook was changing hands, and a missing chef was either a hostage or a corpse waiting for presentation before the carving began. Tomorrow's feast was still on schedule, but now it had a new ingredient: panic. We got back to the brownstone just after 8. Fritz had held dinner, but Wolfe waved us past the table with a look that said, "The case came before Goose." We went to the office, and I gave him the alley scene. Kingsley inspecting the second boar, paying the North Hollow driver an envelope for Rusk, the messenger boy with a note meant for Duval, and Kingsley's order to clear the bay. Wolfe listened, eyes shut. "Someone wanted Duval at the loading bay," he said when I finished. "If Duval is alive, it was a summons. If dead, it was a provocation." Saul added, "I tailed Rusk's aide after the cash pickup. He drove to a storage building on 10th, stayed 10 minutes, then went back to the shop." "Then we look at 10th, Wolfe said mildly. "Now, observe only. If fortune favors you, converse." That translated to don't get heroic, bring me facts. Saul and I went. The storage place was a hulk with numbered bays. The office lights were off, but a gate stood open for late deliveries. We parked across the street and waited. At 9:15, a panel truck rolled in. Gideon Rusk stepped out alone, unlocked the gate, and drove into the yard. We crossed on foot and slipped inside before the gate clanked shut. Rusk backed to Unit 14. The roll-up door rose halfway, and he wrestled an insulated crate on a dolly. Saul whispered, "Hold." We edged closer. He rolled the crate into the unit, then came back out, wiping his hands, and lit a cigarette. I walked up. "Evening, Mr. Rusk." He startled, then scowled. "You again? Hard to forget. Busy night for a butcher. What do you want?" "Duval, and an explanation for that envelope. Get out. After you tell me why Kingsley needs your discretion, and why a Frenchman's name makes him twitch." His cigarette trembled. I don't know any Frenchmen. Then why store a crate at 9 at night? He looked past me at Saul, who had drifted to the open door. Who's that? An insurance man. He hates fraud. Rusk swore and lunged toward the unit. Saul leaned in a second too soon. The light turned his face chalky. Archie, he said. I went in with him. The unit was cool, but not freezer cold. Hanging quarters lined the back wall. On the dolly sat Rusk's crate. The lid wasn't latched. Saul lifted it an inch and the smell rolled out. Salt, clove, and something sour underneath. It wasn't a body. It was a boar's head, severed, eyes dull, tongue gray. Rusk barked. Close that. I did. So you're swapping heads. His shoulders sagged. The first boar was sick. Duval was right. I had a vet report. I told Kingsley. He said a delay would kill his Zurich deal. He made me sign a statement that the carcass was fine. Duval threatened to expose it. He came to me for proof. He left a notebook in your truck, I said. Rusk nodded. He wanted it yesterday morning. We set a meet at the bay. He never came. Instead, Kingsley's men showed. They said Duval had stolen property and I was to keep quiet. Today, Kingsley ordered a clean replacement boar, but wanted the same body. I'm trying to manage that without poisoning 12 dignitaries. Guest star? Saul asked. Ralph Koverick, Rusk said. Swiss investor. Backs Kingsley's new foundation if the feast goes smooth. Kingsley calls him the King. I let that sit a moment. So Duval vanished right after he got leverage on Kingsley. Who had reason to stop him besides Kingsley? Rusk spread his hands. Plenty. Duval was going to ruin a lot of pockets, but I didn't take him. I liked the man. We left him in his chilled box, sweating smoke, and drove home with a king's name, a poisoned boar, and a missing chef still unaccounted for. We told Wolfe everything, while Fritz reheated the goose for the third time and muttered in German about men who think with their stomachs. Wolfe absorbed Rusk's confession without visible surprise, as if he'd already penciled it into a margin. The essential point, he said, is that Duval sought proof. Rusk had it. Kingsley feared it. Therefore, Duval became a danger. His disappearance occurred at the appointed meeting time. That narrows the field. To Kingsley and his 2 guerrillas, I said, not exclusively. If Duval intended to expose Kingsley at the feast, others could profit by preventing that exposure, or by controlling it. The foundation, the Zurich. Investor, the guest list. Each offers motive. Saul added a crumb. While Archie talked to Rusk, I checked the yard office log. A unit was rented Tuesday under a false name, paid in cash. The clerk remembered the guy because he wore Chef White's under a parka. French accent. He said he was storing tools. Duval, I said. Or someone impersonating him, Wolfe replied. Still, it suggests Duval was alive on Tuesday evening. We now have a time window. Alive Monday, fired. Alive Tuesday night, renting a storage unit. Missing Wednesday morning. We must locate that unit. What if Kingsley already cleaned it out? He has not had cause to suspect us of its existence. Yet. Archie, you will go at once with Saul and Inspector Kramer. Search the unit. Kramer arrived with Pearlie in tow, scowling at the hour and the smell of goose, but the poisoned boar got his attention. Wolfe laid out the facts in his calm, lawyerly way, leaving out nothing that would bruise the inspector's pride. Fine, Kramer said. We'll hit the place now. No warrant if it's just a storage bin. If there's a body, we'll talk paperwork later. We drove back to 10th with red and blue company. The yard gate opened to a chorus of tires. The clerk was yanked from his booth and gaped at Kramer's badge like it was a miracle. Unit 14 had Rusk's lock, so we passed it. The clerk led us to 17. The padlock was new. Pearlie snapped it with bolt cutters and the door rattled up. The unit was small and clean, empty except for a folding table, a chair, and a plastic tarp rolled in a corner. On the table sat Duval's black notebook, open to a page of tight French script. Beside it was a phone with the battery out. No blood, no body, no smell. Just the sense of a man interrupted mid-thought. Pearlie crouched by the tarp. Fresh scuffs, something heavy was dragged. Kramer grunted. Out of here, not into it. Tuesday night he rents this place, writes his notes. Wednesday morning he comes back, gets grabbed. Whoever did it was smart enough not to kill him here. Or smart enough to clean up, Pearlie said. Outside, a sedan rolled slowly past the open gate and kept rolling. I caught a glimpse of a woman's face in the passenger seat, pale under streetlight, then gone. Saul noticed too. Was that Dorf? He asked. Maybe, I said. Or Mrs. Kingsley, or anybody who wants to know what we're doing. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe listened to the report, then said, The notebook confirms Duval's intention to expose the diseased boar and perhaps other malfeasance. It also confirms he was taken alive. That is significant. A live hostage is leverage. A dead one is a liability. And leverage, Wolfe knew, always demanded a negotiator with nerve nearby, too. Leverage on Kingsley? Possibly, but not necessarily by Kingsley. Archie, telephone Mrs. Kingsley. Ask her to come at once. Then telephone Miss Dorf. Tell her the feast is postponed unless she attends. The net must tighten before morning. I reached for the phone, feeling the case slide toward a crowded office and Wolfe's favorite sport, watching people sweat from his chair. Mrs. Kingsley arrived first, close to midnight, coat over a silk dress as if she'd fled a party. Lila Dorf came 10 minutes later, hair damp from snow, portfolio under her arm like a shield. They sat where Wolfe pointed, facing the red chair as if it were a judge's bench. Wolfe skipped politeness. Chef Duval rented a storage unit Tuesday night. His notebook was found there tonight. He was taken alive Wednesday morning. I intend to learn by whom and why. Mrs. Kingsley's breath caught. You found his notebook? Yes. It records that the boar to be served was diseased and that your husband insisted on using it. That is not the worst matter. Duval is missing. Wolfe turned to Dorf. You were at the hotel yesterday morning. At 7, running schedules. Did you see Duval? No. Did you see anyone in Chef White's besides staff? She frowned. A slim man in whites near the service corridor by the bay. He was speaking French on a phone. When he noticed me, he turned away. Describe him. Average height, dark hair, around 35. A scar on his left cheek. Wolfe nodded. That man rented the unit using a false name with a French accent. He is not Duval. Duval has no scar. Therefore, Duval was watched and his plan preempted. The imposter left the notebook where we would find it. Dorf said sharply. Preempted by whom? Edward? Possibly, but I doubt he would create a trail pointing at his own kitchen. Someone wanted me engaged. A diseased boar is a convenient detonator. If Duval reappears at the feast, the Zurich investor withdraws, your husband is ruined, and another party profits. Mrs. Kingsley looked down. Edward got a call yesterday. The voice said Duval was in safe refrigeration. Edward laughed, then phoned someone and said to finish it. I heard him say Ralph Koverick's name. He was furious. Guest R, I said. She nodded. Koverick arrives tonight. Edward needs his money. Wolfe's fingers touched. If Koverick sees Duval, he could force Kingsley to proceed with the feast and announce the foundation on Koverick's terms. Refusal still yields scandal. A strong lever. Dorf's face went pale. Koverick's security chief is a man named Moser. He has a scar on his left cheek. I argued with him yesterday about access to the bay. Mrs. Kingsley made a thin sound, half relief, half dread. Wolfe looked at me. Telephone Inspector Kramer, then call Mr. Kingsley. Tell him that unless he allows us to interview Koverick and Moser at once, I will inform every guest before breakfast that the centerpiece is unfit and that Duval has been abducted. Be explicit. While I dialed, Wolfe addressed them evenly. "You will remain here. If your husband is innocent, he will come to me. If guilty, he will evade. Either response is useful." Kingsley answered on the first ring, voice smooth as poured whiskey. I gave Wolfe's message. Silence, then a clipped, "Mr. Goodwin, you are overstepping." "Your feast is overstepping reality, Mr. Kingsley. We'll be there in 30 minutes. He hung up. I told Wolfe, "He won't invite us." Kramer took the call with a grunt. When I summarized, he said, "A Swiss tycoon kidnapping a chef for blackmail. I'll meet you in the lobby. Bring Saul. If Kovarick's people blink, we take them in." The line clicked dead. I fetched my coat and the spare shoulder holster. Saul was in the hall, hat on, grinning thinly. Outside, the snow came harder, muffling the city's Christmas cheer down. Wolfe watched without moving, but his mind was in that marble hotel, herding men who thought they were herders. "You will go," he corrected softly. "I will remain here and telephone if necessary. Remember, Archie, we need a confession or a mistake." "He need not invite us," Wolfe added. "Kovarick will react to the threat. Go to the hotel." The Kingsley Imperial lobby at 1 in the morning looked like a cathedral after the choir quit. The tree glittered for nobody. A night clerk blinked at Kramer's badge while he ground snow off his shoes. "Penthouse for Ralph Kovarick," Kramer said. "Private lift, sir." "Public works for public crimes," Kramer growled. Saul and I followed him into the elevator with Pearlie and a uniform. On the penthouse floor, 2 security men blocked the corridor. One wore the left cheek scar Dorf had described. "We're here to see Mr. Kovarick," Kramer said. "No appointment," the scarred man answered. "You've got a chef missing without an appointment." Kramer stepped in. The man's hand drifted toward his jacket, Pearlie's toward his revolver. I slid between them. "Let's not decorate the hall," I said. "Show us in or explain to the papers why you didn't." The other guard hesitated. The scarred one opened the door. The suite was a ballroom with furniture. Ralph Kovarick stood by the window in a robe, silver hair neat, eyes cool. Edward Kingsley was there too, jacket open, looking wrung out. "Inspector Kramer," Kovarick said pleasantly. "What disturbs your holiday?" "A chef," Kramer snapped. "Where's Henri Duval?" Kingsley started to protest, but Kovarick lifted a finger and he shut up. "Monsieur Duval is safe," Kovarick said. "He rests in this hotel. He was agitated. I prevented a calamity." "Calamity, like telling 12 important men they're about to eat poisoned boar?" I asked. Kovarick's brows rose a shade. Kingsley flinched. "You are Mr. Wolfe's man," Kovarick said. "His voice and his legs. You're holding Duval to keep tomorrow smooth and to make Kingsley dance to your tune." Kovarick smiled. "I wish the foundation to be born. Without scandal." Duval wished to create one. We spoke. He agreed to wait. "Wait," Kramer said, "with bruises on his wrists?" Kovarick's eyes cooled. "My security chief invited Duval to private quarters. He came willingly. He is free to go now, provided he does not endanger guests with hysteria." Saul said, "Hysteria doesn't infect meat." Kingsley burst out, "Duval lied. Rusk's boar was fine." "Edward," a woman's voice cut in from the doorway. Mrs. Kingsley had arrived with Dorf and another uniform, snow on her coat. "Stop." Kingsley stared at her, then at Kovarick. Mrs. Kingsley faced Kovarick. "Your man Moser impersonated Duval and rented a storage unit to bait Wolfe. Then you grabbed Duval before he could talk. That isn't charity. That's extortion." Kovarick tilted his head. "Clara, you are perceptive. But I did not need to bait Wolfe." Edward's recklessness was bait enough. The speakerphone on the side table clicked on. Nero Wolfe's bass filled the room. "Good evening, Mr. Kovarick. You did need to bait someone." "Me." Kovarick bowed to the phone. "Mr. Wolfe." "Honored." "Release Duval to Inspector Kramer," Wolfe said. or I will inform your Zurich board and your Geneva patrons that your feast rests on coercion and contaminated pork." "You assume much," Kovaric murmured. "I deduce. Mr. Moser bears the scar Miss Dorf saw. The storage unit ruse was to attract my attention. When I threatened Kingsley, you meant to offer protection in return for control of the Foundation. Duval's notebook was leverage. Duval himself a hostage." Kovaric's gaze slid to the scarred guard. "Moser," he said softly. "Bring Duval." The guard left. He moved with the brisk obedience of a man who knows which master pays and which master prosecutes. Kingsley sagged into a chair. "You set me up." "I stabilized you," Kovaric said, "for a price, naturally." Minutes later, Moser returned with Henri Duval between two men. Duval was pale, wrists red, but alive, eyes furious and lucid. He nodded once to Mrs. Kingsley. Kramer stepped forward. "Chef, you're coming with us." Duval didn't resist. His eyes cut to Kingsley. "Tomorrow there is no feast," Wolfe said from the phone. "On that point, monsieur, we are unanimous." We rode down with Duval in the service elevator because Kramer didn't feel like giving the penthouse a parade. Duval kept his chin up, but the red rings on his wrists said he'd been tied longer than Kovaric's silk voice admitted. Pearlie walked beside him like a nurse with a warrant. In the lobby, Kramer took a statement. Duval's English was crisp. "Mr. Kingsley demanded I certify unsafe meat. I refused. I planned to notify the guests and the health department. Tuesday evening, a man came to my apartment, claiming to be from Mr. Rusk. He spoke French. When I opened the door, 2 others entered. They took my notebook, my phone, and myself. They said if I spoke, a Foundation would bury me. They brought me here and kept me in a room with no windows." "Did Kingsley lay hands on you?" Kramer asked. "No, his men did, on Mr. Moser's order." Kramer nodded, already sorting charges. Kidnapping, assault, conspiracy, the kind of bundle that makes judges frown even in December. He promised protection and sent Duval with Pearlie to the squad car. Saul and I stayed long enough to watch Kovaric glide out with lawyers, still smiling as if the night had been a negotiation he'd won. A uniform collected Moser and the other guards without fuss. The scarred chief looked surprised that politeness could come with handcuffs. Kingsley tried to follow Kramer to the car, talking fast about misunderstandings and investors. Kramer shut him down with one sentence. "Save it for your attorney, for the judge who hears him." Snow was coming down in polite sheets. Kingsley stood on the steps staring past the traffic. Mrs. Kingsley went to him and said something low. He didn't answer. When she turned away, I caught pity in her eyes that didn't excuse him, but explained why she'd tried to save him. Dorf hovered near me. "What happens to the feast?" she asked. "You heard the chef." She exhaled. "Good. I was tired of arranging place cards for threats." Back at the brownstone, the house was warm and quiet, the way it gets after we've chased trouble back into the street. Wolfe was in the office, napkin tucked into his collar, coffee at hand, looking more rested than any man who had just toppled a Swiss tycoon from his chair had a right to. "Duval is safe and will testify," I reported. Kovaric tried extortion, Kingsley tried denial, and Moser tried muscle. Kramer has them boxed. Wolfe sipped. "And the boar?" "Rusk will destroy the carcass. The health department will get a call. The guests will get apologies. Kovaric will get a plane. And Mr. Kingsley? His own mess. If he's smart, he'll plead, pay, and pray the city forgets." Wolfe made a small sound of scorn. "Money buys time, not absolution. It is a common error to confuse the two." Fritz appeared, eyes bright in the doorway. "Dinner, please. The goose has waited long enough to become cynical." Wolfe rose with the labor of a monument and moved toward the dining room. "Archie," he said, "observe how civilization is maintained, not by feasts for kings, but by the refusal of a cook to poison his guests." At the table, the goose was perfect, the potatoes obedient, the wine behaving. Wolfe ate in silence for a while, then said, almost to himself, "A man may build a foundation on charity, on vanity, or on fear. Only the first will stand when winter comes." I chewed on that and on the goose. Christmas would still arrive in our brownstone. Somewhere uptown, a power zoo was hunting another dinner and wondering why a chef's conscience had proved more expensive than a Swiss king's checkbook. Wolfe dabbed his lips. "The appetite," he said, "is a useful servant and a disastrous master." "Yeah," I said. "Tell that to Kingsley, and maybe to the goose." Christmas morning in New York is a funny thing. The city pretends to sleep, but it's really just whispering in a different key. I was in the office with Wolfham after breakfast, the orchids tended and the goose retired with honor, when the phone started its duty roster. Kramer called. Moser and Koverick's lawyer are in my hair, Swiss embassy too, but Duval's statement is solid. Kidnapping, coercion. Kingsley's cooperating now that he sees the cell bars. Health department shut the Kingsley kitchen. The feast is dead. "Excellent," Wolfe said and hung up. He looked at me. "The only question remaining is why Koverick chose such crude leverage." "Crude worked. He almost got what he wanted." "Almost," Wolfe said. "But he was too late. He underestimated Duval." As if on cue, the bell rang. I went down and found Henri Duval on the stoop, hat pulled low. He carried a bottle of something fine French. "Mr. Goodwin, I came to thank Monsieur Wolfe." "You're just in time. He's in a mood to be thanked." Upstairs, Duval faced the red chair like a soldier reporting. "Monsieur Wolfe," he began, "you have restored my liberty and my honor. You restored your honor when you refused to sign a lie. Sit down, monsieur. You left a thread dangling." Duval sat. "The thread?" "You were seized Tuesday afternoon. Yet a man in Chef White's rented a storage unit in your name that evening and placed your notebook there. Therefore, an impostor acted after your abduction. Who supplied him your notebook and schedule?" Duval's jaw tightened. "Many knew I was angry. A waiter, perhaps." "Many knew," Wolfe agreed, "but only one benefited from forcing my involvement quickly. Not Miss Dorff, not Mrs. Kingsley, not Rusk, not Kingsley. Mr. Koverick did. He needed time pressure. He created it by planting evidence that promised scandal." Duval stared. "But I never met Monsieur Koverick." "No, you met Moser, and he met you with knowledge. Koverick arranged your removal, then arranged a trail to bring me to him as rescuer. A theatrical inversion meant to make you grateful and Kingsley dependent." Duval let out air. He meant to be the savior. "Precisely. If I had not joined the diseased boar and the hostage in one inference, you would have been released today, repentant and silenced, while Kingsley toasted a foundation he no longer controlled. Koverick's error was impatience. He did not allow for my distaste of manipulation." Duval nodded slowly. "Then I was a pawn." "On one board," Wolfe corrected. I declined to play along. Duval set the bottle on Wolfe's desk. "For Fritz. He loves this brandy, yes?" "He does. That is a wise bribe." Wolfe paused. "What will you do now?" "I will testify. And then I will cook again, somewhere that respects food and truth." "Good," Wolfe said. "Archie, see that Monsieur gets coffee." Duval left a few minutes later, shoulders straighter. When the door closed, the office felt like it had snapped back into its proper geometry. "You said he was underestimated," I reminded Wolfe. "Indeed. Koverick assumed a chef would trade principle for safety. He did not. It is a rare appetite that refuses fear." The bell rang again, this time with Fritz announcing that lunch would be simple because the world had already supplied complexity enough. Wolfe rose, the red chair releasing him reluctantly. At the table he ate, then said, "Not to Fritz, not to me. But to the idea of the thing, a feast intended to crown a man often exposes the bones beneath his robe. In such cases, the only honest king is the one who declines the crown." I took that in with my coffee. Outside, the city's whispers were turning back into traffic and laughter. Our brownstone was quiet again, sacred in its small ways, and Christmas, for once, didn't need a carving knife to make its point.